Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You were tuned into U's Underground Skills Exchange's Speak Up series, this one entitled The Path Revealed Through Arts Education. A little bit about U's. We are a 501c3 nonprofit artist collective that provides the space for artists to collaborate, develop new projects, and exchange skill sets outside the confines of industry and society standards. We work to uplift the voices of underrepresented artists so they can in turn empower their respective communities. We all know this pandemic has been extremely difficult for everyone, including educators and artists. Many of us have found ways to reappropriate our talents, learn new skills, and even shift career paths. Tonight, we plan to highlight the power of arts education and artistic creativity as seen through the experiences of these panelists. They have utilized their acquired skills and creativity to develop unique and robust careers for themselves. We'll talk about our sense of purpose, how we process trauma, how we address social injustices, and work to strengthen the communities that need our support. With that, we have organized the fundraiser this evening to benefit our friends and collaborators, Dance in Color. 50% of funds raised will go to this organization that works to repair the racial imbalances in the professional dance industry through providing scholarships and financial aid to aspiring Black dancers. So we hope you'd consider contributing to these two organizations, U's and Dance in Color, who advocate for inclusion and work to strengthen underrepresented artist communities. A contribution of any size is a powerful and valuable one. You can donate this evening, all throughout the evening at the link on the screen. We will be providing that link throughout the night and remind you during and after if you'd like to make a contribution. We'd really appreciate that. There will be a Q&A to follow, so please keep your put your questions in the comment section throughout the evening. You do not have to wait till the end. Laura, our fabulous co-founder and artistic director, will be on the back end, and she'll be accumulating them throughout the evening. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce you to our four wonderful panelists tonight. First up, we have Kiana Cox-Jones. There she is. She is a creative mastermind, curator, producer, and advocate. So great to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm grateful to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, Dr. Christopher Sierra.
Hello.
Currently a professor at Butler University, classical voice teacher and advocate.
Thank you so much for having me tonight, Kelly. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Such a pleasure to see you. Thank you. Next up, Sarah Van Auken.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Sarah is a speech language pathologist, actor, and voice and speech coach.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
Next, we have, last but not least, we have Marcus Jordan. There he is.
Hello.
Artist,
Hello.
administrator, advocate, and storyteller. And this panel marks his first official duty as the newest U's board member. So welcome.
Hello, hello. I'm overjoyed to be in the company of like-minded folks and folks that are fighting the good fight. So it's lovely to be here.
Yes, sir. Well, with that, let's just jump right in and get started then, right? Fighting the good fight. I just want to stress and acknowledge again that, I've talked to each of you separately before this, and all of us can attest that the past year has been very difficult in many different ways. And I really admire your resilience from your stories and, how you just adapted, got up, sprung back up, and kind of molded the world around you to create these really robust careers. And I want to talk about, how your mindsets might have changed, introspection, self-reflection, and how your training and creativity kind of played a role in how you got through. So I think the only place to start is the beginning with our origins, our origin story. So I would love to start with my high school buddy down there, Sarah. I've known you since over a decade and been doing theater. We did theater together in high school. There's certainly stigma attached to going into the arts and pursuing a career in the arts. And I just wanted to ask you, what was your experience with that as we were, doing shows in high school and as you were preparing to go off to college, University of the Arts in Philly.
Mhm.
Were there conversations you were having? Were you finding you were defending your choice? What was that experience like for you?
Yes, I mean, I remember being in conversations with my mom and my brother, and my family likes to talk about catastrophes for reasons we might get to, but they were saying art careers, they're just not useful. They're not needed, when things get down to it, why do we need it? But I think it's become really clear during this pandemic that we do need it. We needed it a lot to entertain us and to keep us sane, and to escape a little bit from all of the stuff going on. But I did it anyway. I said it is important, and I went and I pursued it.
Yeah. How about you, Chris? Same question to you. Were there any thoughts between your family or your support group that that they might feel like, oh, you need real skills, or you might need a backup plan, or this isn't a very great choice of career path because there's no, if you don't have a fallback plan, Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, this is a really great question. It brings out some emotions for me. I grew up in a low socioeconomic household, and I was very bright in high school, and it was expected that I was going to maybe bring my family out of poverty by becoming a lawyer or a doctor. And so when I decided to make the choice to become a musician, because I knew it was something that I wanted to do with my life, it was not something that was received wholeheartedly by my family, at least not until they were able to come and see me perform at my senior recital and see that through my recital, that I had evolved so much as an adult, and that my versatile music education experience and the interdisciplinary education that I received didn't just make me prepared for the music industry, but the global workforce. I was a leader. I was more outspoken than I was when I was in high school. I was, carrying myself amongst what my parents believed to be the elite, right? And so it was something that they would later value when they saw me doing the work, and beyond just performing, just seeing the transformative effects that I would have on my students entering the field of music education, not just performance. I double majored actually in my undergraduate, and so I think sometimes those people that don't believe have to see it to believe
Yeah.
it. And I was very fortunate that I had the opportunity in my life to share my work with my family, and they did come around. But initially, no. I think oftentimes we think that the arts don't really contribute to a holistic education and don't really provide one the skills to be marketable. But I really do believe a versatile music education, interdisciplinary music education, is one that can really prepare our students, young adults, for the global workforce, and can really
Yeah.
hone skills like leadership and administration, etc.
Yeah. With that, yeah, you talk about like our becoming like a whole, right? And training, giving you like a holistic approach in terms of how you enter not just the arts, but other workforces and just your community as a whole. And this reminds me of what I talked to Kiana about how we both identified with being shy children and growing up, and how the arts kind of gave us confidence and really helped with our development and maturity. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, Kiana, and how the arts played a part in your youth, all the way through when you went to undergrad.
Sure, absolutely. So I was extremely shy. I'm the oldest grandchild. It's about 40 or something of us now. I've
Wow.
lost count. It's 40 something grandchildren. So there were 9 children altogether, and then they had children. And so I'm the oldest. And so I was extremely shy, and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who was a preacher, so much so that I would like hang on to her leg when she would sing in church. And no one knew that I could sing. No one knew that I could do anything because I was so shy. And it wasn't until at Washington Academy of Music in East Orange, New Jersey, where the extraordinary Jean James gave me a solo for I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Gladys Knight. And I was like, I can't do that. All I sing is gospel music. And my grandmother would kill me if I sang anything else other than gospel music. And she said, baby, God gave you that voice. You can sing. And so we did. And I didn't tell anybody. I just told Mom I invited her to this show. I just told Mom I'm doing a show. And so they all thought it was just like, oh, Kiana's doing a little something cute. And I remember my first tech rehearsal, I stood on the stage and I didn't move. And Miss James got in front and started saying, just mimic me. And I just mimicked her. And all of a sudden she stopped. I kept going. And my mom came to the show and she talked about, she stood in the back of the theater and she kept going, who kid is that? And people were like, that little girl is good, girl. And she kept saying, who kid is that? And so she decided to keep me in that. No one in my family had ever heard of musical theater. That was not a thing for us. No one in my family had ever pursued education. And so I was first generation everything. And then I kept going to the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. My senior year, I won the Star Ledger $40,000 scholarship in the arts. From then on, I won the Governor's Award. Then I went on to Howard University. And then from there, I just kept going. What I found was that the little girl in me that was afraid to talk and afraid to communicate with people, I found a voice through the arts. And so it became my ministry. It became first healing for me that then allowed me to be healing for other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, Marcus, I see you getting ready to testify down there. Do you want to jump in? What did the arts do for you in your adolescence? You know, in your journey from childhood to your undergrad?
I don't know, but I knew she's gonna give us a word, a testimony. So you can tell a PK when you see one. But so thank you for that, Kiana. You know, I really identify with that as well. I came from a single parent home. And I was a very empathetic kid growing up. And so seeing my mom struggle was very hard for me. So music was the thing that kind of gave me joy because our life was really tough. And when you have a mom that's coming in and trying to make it, and you don't understand necessarily the nuts and bolts of managing finances on your own, raising kids on your own, trying to create like autonomy for yourself on your own without support of a partner. But artists, we get that, we feel that, even when we don't necessarily have the language. I think that's really the superpower of an artist, is to be able to feel human connection. And so, or like need human connection. So then you're like, what is going on with you? So the arts gave me a place to smile. There was something about music. My preschool teacher, I was a busybody kid. I couldn't be quiet. I couldn't sit still. I think that is a lot of young Black men experience that as when they're small, is that they also understand the plight of the world. And some of us can't. We have to be, we're trying to work through it because like life is going to be hard for me. So I wouldn't go to sleep when I was a preschooler to normal nursery rhymes and things like that. And my teacher, I'll never forget her, Miss Marty, made a tape that had Mozart and Beethoven symphonies on it. And she put me in a separate room, and I would conduct to the music, and then I would pass out. And so when my parents came in for teacher-parent conferences, she was like, you need this tape, and you need to introduce your son to like classical music. And I know you might not understand this, and I know like, I'm sure your life is really busy, but your son, this isn't just like a self-control thing. You know, again, when you have a holistic teacher, when a holistic teacher swoops in and sees the potential and not just the problem, you can be saved. And so she told my parents, she went beyond saying, this is what you need to, calm your hyper son down. She said, you need to enroll him and engage him in classical music because it's going to help him to be the person that he needs to be. And from then on, my mom did the best she could. I happened to be a precocious child, so I was like, if you're not gonna get it, I have to get this Brahms and I have to get this Mozart. I have to have it. So I'm gonna go and get it. So I need to go to the best school. I know we got to pay for it, but I need it. I need to go to this camp. So if I got to throw newspapers to get it, I'm gonna get it. I was that kid. So like the opposite of Kiana, we all have what we need to make it, right? Inside us. And for me, my voice needed to be heard early. And I think as well as being a Black queer man, I needed to be in a space where I was going to be loved for who I was. My identity was very important to my artistry. And so I went on and my mom put me in that school, that Christian school that had the orchestras and had the full choir program and had the musicals. And I was the lead in the musicals. I was the only Black person in the musical and the only Black person in the chorale but I was like, and I got scholarships and I went to school. Yeah, I just didn't stop. I didn't listen to anybody. And I think that's it's so beautiful to hear everybody else's story, is that I did not have the support of my mom. And I didn't have the support of my family. They didn't block me, but they didn't support me. And that really is blocking you. When you're not supported, you're being blocked. But when God puts something in you, when the universe puts something in you, it stirs you. And so and some of us are stirred later or earlier than others. And I was stirred early because the universe knew I wouldn't have the support. And so that stirred me up. And I had Miss Marty's and Amanda Quists and people that were in my life that are now, some of which are just retired teachers, and some of our educators that are like all over the world doing amazing things. They fed into me. So anyway, that's I'm a long-winded, y'all, so please cut me off.
Say the Oscars, not an award show. I'm not trying to cut you off in your speech. It's okay. But thank you so much. And you brought up a really good point of support systems. So I'd actually love to jump back to Sarah. And if you could talk about your time at U of Arts, and I know you spent some time in Philly. And but who were your support systems? Who did you go to build you up, and kind of give you the confidence that you needed to keep going while you were there? And I know Philly and East Brunswick, New Jersey, where we're from, is not too far.
Yeah.
But I would just love for you to speak on that.
Yeah. I had a lot of supports in my friends at college. At the beginning, I really struggled to connect with my people because I was so close to my high school friends. And I think I also wasn't sure how to do the transition. Transitions are hard. And then around sophomore year, when I started doing Meisner training, I like a light bulb turned on, I guess. And I realized that I had my own agency and I was an angry and emotional person. And the people who were in the class with me, we were all going through that together. A lot of theater things and acting training feels like a family. And that's what I built there. And then of course, while my mom had a lot of trepidation, she was trepidatious about me going into the arts because she herself went into the arts, but visual arts, and saw how hard it was. I'm so lucky. It's an unending fountain of support for me. So her, and also my friends from East Brunswick, Kelly, you and Gina and Marley and Kita.
I know all those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are really lovely people. And I know I can see how you guys have grown, and we've talked so much about, my experience in going into corporate America, and leaving, or what I thought. I was, kind of afraid to kind of leave behind the arts, but then I realized I can do both. And, just having those conversations with you, even if it was through text, was so helpful. And, just watching how you've progressed and like how you've, moved from the arts and then using your arts and your training in, speech language pathology and, voice and speech coaching. It's really astounding. And I'm glad that you became a Use member and came to the cycles and you really added to the conversation and, put in your own experiences, and it was so valuable. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you for including me.
Yeah. I want to jump back to Kiana in terms of support systems, because we talked about a really cool organization with Howard. If you want to speak to that, I think you know what I'm talking about. If you can talk about them and those women.
Absolutely. So that's my daughter. I'm a part of Diva Incorporated at Howard University, and it's a society for women in the arts. And wow, man. So Debbie Allen, Linda Gravatt, Harriet D. Foy, who is on P-Valley right now, Wendy Raquel Robinson. Wow, the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a big support for me at Howard University, because it was a group of women of color who were in the arts, who was supporting each other, finding ourselves. And so it wasn't just about the arts for us. It was about finding and defining our womanhood, our sexuality, our creativity, and then knowing who we are and who we were, and then embracing that, and then unapologetically walking that out into every audition room that we went into. So the goal was that when we walked out the room, you remembered our name, not because we were just fierce at what we did, which we are, but it was because we brought a light into that room. And so that was a big support system for me, because I was the first to go off to college. So I didn't have that support in regards to what do I do next? How do I navigate through this? I was telling Kelly about Professor Henrietta Edmonds, who talked to us about business show. There's a class at Howard that's like, it's not about show business, it's about business show. And it's all that you need to know about the behind the scenes stuff about how to make this work. And that was so helpful to me. I still have my binder now. It still sits on my shelf. I still have my binder of my business show. But in addition to that, my mom did not know about college, but she knew that I had a gift. And so what I would say is that she knew that there was something inside of Kiana from a little girl. And so she was always invested in the gift and reminding me that whether I was on someone's stage or whether I was in a cubicle, that gift had to shine and that it would make room for me. And so that was helpful for me, that no matter where I went, because now I'm a mom. So I'm a mom of 5. We have 4 boys and 1 daughter, my husband and I. And so she knew, like, Kiana, you have to remember your why. You have to remember who you are, why you were created. And so that way that will carry you. What is your gift? And so I'm reminded of the gift. And so that was my support system, my mom, my family, and Diva Incorporated at Howard University.
Excellent. Now, I want to jump to Marcus and Chris. So I'll go Marcus first, then Chris, because Kiana's talking about this business show class, right? That kind of set them up and gave them these, tools that you wouldn't really expect to be associated with an arts education. So Marcus, we had a conversation about this, and you felt that quite the opposite, that you didn't get all of that, right?
Yes, I didn't get anything. There are a lot of things, and I'm gonna stick to the question. But I think when you talk about classical music, it is a form that is taught by people that teach to an art form that has not evolved. And the art form in the real world hasn't evolved, but the mindset of the teachers that teach in these conservatories also haven't evolved, right? So there are no FES contracts. You can't just move to Germany and make it work. Also, how many performances of La Boheme can you do, and can that pay your bills? I was just told to learn the role, but I wasn't told like it takes this long to learn a role professionally, and that you have to pay for, and then it takes this amount of time to audition for said role. There's this amount of chance that you're going to get the role, and then if you do, this is what houses outside of the Met and San Francisco and Chicago will pay you to do it. So I had no idea what I set myself up for financially as a professional artist after spending thousands of dollars in school. I thought that my gift would make room for me. And it did, into free performances, not into things that would actually pay my bills. So the disservice is that I didn't know. I spent so much time focused on the art that I wasn't noticing what was happening. I wasn't watching anything about the political climate, the economic climate that was going on around me. I was so consumed with, like memorizing my libretto, that when I came out of school in 2008, there was a recession that had been clearly set up that I did not understand and I was not ready to navigate. And there were no companies that were eager to hire a green, young, Black opera singer to sing the standard repertory. And I had no idea how to bounce around or how to realize, but I marketed myself. I learned to market myself. I learned to do all these skills. I didn't know how to use something like, you could be an accountant if you wanted to, or you could be blah, 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 blah. So I didn't have any of those skills to take the things I learned and to make money. I did not learn that. So I had a very different experience.
Chris, how about you?
Well, I have to echo what my good friend Marcus has said. There are those of us who have mentors that help us through the way, and then there are those of us who have to be self-advocates. And my entire life, I've had to be a self-advocate, not just to be a sustainable artist in this field or a music educator, but I feel like just to exist as a human being, as a BIPOC in education, an education that we know is so informed by the racist and imperialist traditions that we're recipients of. I can remember, and this is hard to talk about, but I can remember as early as sophomore year, my high school choral teacher telling me that she was contemplating giving me a leadership position role, but I was too feminine and that I had to be more masculine if I was going to be respected. And that was the beginning of me kind of defying authority. Because I remember in my mind, I felt embarrassed, but I was also like, girl, bye. Like, have a seat. You play the organ, you don't even sing. Like, I'm going to make my way and I'm going to try and, I'm going to try and create a respectable path for myself, no matter what it takes in the arts. And the following year, I became president of my junior class. I noticed as I reflect on my journey, I've only had to be told once that I couldn't do it. And I would change that narrative via self-advocacy for myself. I started off a special education student until I was in 8th grade. And I was constantly taunted. Of course, I was in choir too, and I was a talented singer. So nobody really ever associated me with the special education students. And I overheard one of my colleagues once saying, like, that's where all the, I'm not going to say it out loud. It's an R word. That's where all the R word kids are. And I remember thinking, they really must not know I'm a part of that clique, And so what was interesting, though, for me is that the arts gave me the confidence that I needed to be a stronger self-advocate for myself, gain the confidence to actually get myself out of special education. So by the time I was in high school, I was in general classes, college prep, honors, and then advanced placement. And then, sure enough, going into college, double bacheloring in music education and voice performance. But even that, I got in to undergrad because people saw that I had potential and grit, not because they could hear talent right away. I mean, I didn't have voice lessons in high school. So my Italian sounded Spanish because I prepared it myself and I taught myself the Italian diction, and my larynx was coming out of my face, but I had something that you can't teach people, which is charisma. And I held on to that. And I used that as a kind of like the vehicle for self-advocacy, later that year, my freshman year, I ended up getting into the vocal performance program. It wasn't initially accepted, and so on and so on. So I think as a BIPOC, gender nonconforming, hashtag somebody who doesn't meet any of the dominant, norms, I've constantly encountered moments of oppression and moments where I was told that I couldn't. But for me, surmounting and overcoming all of that was really like informed by my own self-advocacy, and what inspired me to move on and go forward and not ever succumb to what the negativity, if you will. Music, as cheesy as it sounds, for me, I found my escape in just making sound. Sound for me was healing. It was those moments of silence for me that was dangerous. The moments that I stopped making music for me that was dangerous, where I really delved into the self-doubt and what's going to become of my future, but I allowed myself to make sound, and sound and music saved me. And music is what allowed me to be my biggest self-advocate, so that I could move forward and that I could surmount all of the inevitable kind of oppressive behaviors that are in store for us as BIPOC in this profession. There are inevitabilities, and it's only made me a stronger teacher now because I can be the role model that I never had. So I think, there was purpose in all of that. I think, I believe in the universe. I believe that there's this greater energy that was helping navigate my inner compass, so that despite all of this oppression, I would develop the tools to be a stronger advocate, not just for myself, but for the younger people that follow after me. So I could be a better role model.
Yeah, I love that, Chris. There's something really powerful when you speak about self-advocacy. And I think everybody on this panel right now has the ability and has had to self-advocate for themselves to get where they are. And I kind of want to use that to shift from, we talked about our origins in education, into where we are in the workforce right now. And, Kiana and I talked about, intersectionality, coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. And I just want to give that, to just set up a framework and give kind of a definition for that before I proceed. So intersectionality, an analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. So how we identify and all the different angles of how we may be oppressed. We're female identifying on here. We're queer, we're people of color. So and I just want to dig into that and see where we are professionally, how you have to self-advocate for yourself to get to where you are and kind of heal yourself before you can open up to help and heal others, like Chris kind of said. So Kiana, I would love to jump to you with that prompt and see what you got to say about that.
Sure. So I am a woman. I am a Black woman. And then I am a mother of 5. And believe it or not, I have been asked by a cisgender white man who stood in front of my students. I was assistant director on a college campus, and asked, "Oh my gosh, you have 5 children. Do they all have the same father?" And so I remember, at that time I was also pregnant with my daughter, the only daughter, Savannah Grace. And my hormones were acting all up. And so I didn't want to be the stereotype of angry Black woman. So I had to check myself for a moment and then have a conversation with him about stereotypes. But also I had to be careful in how I had that conversation, because my mother did have 3 children that we all didn't have the same father. And so did that lessen who she was as a Black woman? And so, so in all those identities that I carry, there are 3 different barriers that I have to overcome for each one of those identities. And then they all intersect in what I do. So currently, I have my own production company called KJ Productions, where we do drama, which is divine revelation, artistically ministered through the arts. It's creative restorative practice. I take restorative practice and I mix that with the theater, and it becomes a spiritual conduit for actors to go through a process. So before they can take the audience on a transformation, they themselves going on the journey. Then also, my 9 to, I guess you can call it 5, which really ain't 9 to 5 because my phone still go off. I am a coordinator for equity and inclusion for K through 12, an entire school division in Virginia. And theater becomes a big part of what I do because of public speaking and always engaging in courageous conversations with people. And honestly, I just had this conversation with someone in regards to my identity and how I'm always reminded that I am a Black woman. I was at a board meeting last Thursday, and a gentleman got up and he mentioned that I was a racist. He was a white man. He said that I was a racist and I'm poisonous. And so when we had a conversation today with my colleagues, someone asked like, well, do you think that that's normal? And they were like, yeah, that's always normal. People always get up at meetings and do that. And I said, it's not normal when it attacks your social identity. It's not normal. Just like it wouldn't be okay if they attacked a queer person, we would have to address it. It wouldn't be okay if it was a Muslim person. It wouldn't be okay if it was Asian. It's never okay when it attacks your social identity. There's role privilege and then there's ascribed privilege. And so we have to be careful when we mistake one for the other. And then we have to be careful to forget to be empathetic. And I think that's what we're starting to compare trauma. So it's like, oh, that happened to you, but this happened to me. Rather than in that moment, what does Marcus, like I sat here and I thought to myself, I see you. I hear you, Marcus. When he said to us, hey, I grew up like this and I left college and I graduated in 2008 too, and thinking of where do I do next? That's not a time for me to go, well, Marcus, I had a hard time too. That's a moment for me to say, I see you, Marcus. For me to say, I hear you, Marcus, and to honor his truth. But we're so busy comparing each other's trauma that we forget to see and hear each other. And so that's where the arts, we become a mirror reflection for the rest of the world, whether it's through music, whether it's through dance, whether it's through drama. We become a mirror reflection and we become windows for the rest of the world to see themselves. And we don't have to be on stage to do it. We can be an equity coordinator and do it. We can be a professor and do it. We can be a voice, a dialect coach. We can be all of what we are and still be windows and mirrors for people and be advocates.
Excellent. Yes. And I do want to jump to Sarah on that because you even mentioned voice of speech and the work that Sarah does. How do you, incorporate these skills you have to, show empathy? And well, first you have to look in and take care of yourself, and heal yourself first before you can, show up for your patients and for your clients. So I would love for you to kind of let us in on that and your journey with, how you've been able to do that, and you can start wherever and whatever you feel comfortable talking to us.
Yeah. So I had been sort of asleep to what was going on with me for a long time in terms of my own demons. My dad died on 9/11, and you would assume that someone post 9/11 would have PTSD, but I didn't realize that until this year. What I did use art for was honestly an outlet for all of my huge emotions that I was having and not realizing that it was, something deeper going on with me. And then this year sort of mimicked 9/11 in a lot of different ways. It sort of paralleled, and I got very triggered and I started to really take care of myself. But before I was aware of the fact that I had PTSD, my arts education and my experience with grief and all of my life experience surrounding the trauma of 9/11 has helped me hold space for people, because a lot of people who I see, who suffer from communication loss, let's say they had a stroke, a traumatic brain injury, they're grieving for the life that they had before. So I'm very well versed in, holding space for grief. In terms of all the kids I see and how I had to shift things for the pandemic, my business partner and I figured out teletherapy really fast, and we're working with babies on, the screen, keeping them entertained. That was my arts education that brought me to that place. And, making sure that, I mean, I have to be there and hold space for people all the time, and comfort parents and patients themselves and their family members. And a lot of counseling goes into the work that I do. And really being able to maintain that. There's a lot of self-care that goes on for sure. However, I think that being able to hold emotions, being able to change what I'm doing on a dime, is all my arts education and experience and training with acting and theater.
Yeah. Could you go a little bit more into detail in terms of like day to day?
Sure.
Obviously, you don't have to
I mean,
talk about like a specific patient, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, day to day, you know, someone that I am working with right now, we're just evaluating her. She fell, she hit her head, and she's got a lot of cognitive difficulty going on. So I have to, in the session, figure out how to best reach her and teach her, understand how she can communicate, what she can understand. Can she read? Can she understand auditorily? How much can she understand? And from there, teach her daughter how to communicate best with her, so that they are understanding each other, they're expressing themselves in an effective way. We're creating a communication book specifically for her. So lots of individualized treatment, and things like that. And if it's okay, I want to go back to something that Dr. Chris said, about special ed and having to self-advocate. A lot of the kids that I see, unfortunately, are diagnosed with learning disability or a speech language disorder, and it's actually just difference, because of, you know, their bilingualism or whatever their background is. And so much respect for you and your story. I know how hard it can be to overcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Blessings to you. Thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you so much.
Can I just add something to that?
Go for it.
I know there's a delay with my microphone. I apologize.
Oh, that was going on. That's okay.
Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing about your experience. I think that the word trauma is something that I think everybody in this room can probably relate to. And I know that for me, it's been very difficult. I feel like I'm still, and it's okay to admit this, you know, that I'm still working through traumas in my life. Like the trauma of being told I'm not masculine enough, or the trauma of being told that I'm, you know, not smart enough or not good enough, or that there's not a place for me at the table. But I just want to just say how incredibly validating and moving it is that we've kind of all found an outlet, a healthy outlet, that isn't just like a career for us, but it's also like a power source for us. And it just, oh gosh, I'm going to stop before I start crying. It's just an emotional moment for me because, you know, especially now in the pandemic, it's so easy to get stuck on this idea that we're really all alone. And that's just not true, you know, and we're experiencing that firsthand right here. You know, I'm sitting among incredible human beings who get it, but who are just showing me through their story that we're not alone and we're all experiencing these things in different capacities. And I just think it's so beautiful. I think it's so beautiful.
Chris, we see you. We see you and we hear you, Chris. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. I do want to jump back to Marcus. Any thoughts? No, I'll pose this question to you. Who, in your own experience, in your own journey, how do you show up for yourself, and then how do you show up for others?
That's such a great question, and thank you so much for.
Did we lose Chris?
Yeah, it looks like it. But I think
Laura will be on it. She'll get him back. But
I think one of the biggest things that I have struggled with is shrinking. I think that Black men, I think Black people in general, but I think Black men shrink to navigate, to assimilate, to And to be super transparent, I'm very good at navigating those spaces. You know, out of survival, I can be in any space and make people feel comfortable. But there is no breakthrough in comfortability. So I can't be the best artist I can be or the best human I can be if I diminish whatever I was given. And so I think the thing that I have learned through the tumultuous journey of being a Black person that wants to be an artist in America is that I have to shine, and in the tiniest light is going to be a disruption in many spaces. And I've been blessed with a lot of light, but the littlest thing will make people super angry, super dangerous, or do things that that can be a danger to you. So I have to tell myself in the morning that, like, being a Black man, being someone that, like, is saying, that says, I come from a beautiful family, broken and interesting as it is, there's beauty there. There was something placed within me artistically that is beautiful. I have been surrounded with chosen family and colleagues that have also infused that beauty with confidence. And yes, when you come into the room in a country that expects you to have no hope, and you come in with hope and then confidence and then a point of view, people are going to be scared. And if that is happening, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. And so I have to tell myself that every day when I enter my job, my administrative job, when I enter auditions, when I would be in New York City auditioning for these Broadway, I would have to say, you got to be big, bruh. Because they won't see you if you're not being your full self, and you are large, energetically, gift-wise, purpose-wise, you are big. So you have to allow yourself to walk into these spaces. And then, like Chris was saying, and we have been on this journey and for together, but like I feel like we have all kind of been on this artistic journey, right? So we're meeting up. This is our little school that we are kind of engaging in today. But that notion of be the person that you needed as a kid. Anytime I see a young Black man, anybody, right? But anytime I see someone that identifies with my plight, I have to do that. I have to do that energetically. So Kiana, with her company, that she is telling people that it's okay as an artist to have to know what your gift is, to hold your gift, and to understand the heaviness of that. Too much is given, much is required. My mom would say to me all the time. So I try to make sure, and not just young folks. I think as artists in general, and especially as Black artists, but as artists, like, so to loop our sis Sarah in, as artists, as all of us, that where we're saying, I'm going to spend my life opening myself so that maybe someone will consider being open, because we can't make them do anything, but consider to be open. We have to encourage that person to be the best that they can be, and also to take up space in doing that. So I think that that's what I don't shrink, and then I encourage other people not to shrink. That there is enough room for light. That we never can have enough light in the room.
Can I jump in here for a second? Because what you're saying is really bringing up what Kiana and I talked about, is calling, right? And I would love for you to elaborate this calling, going where you're needed, going where you're meant to be, and the people on here who obviously have religious backgrounds and have certain beliefs, yes, but even if you're not religious, I think you can relate to this no matter what. So I would love for Kiana to talk about calling and purpose.
Absolutely. So I had an amazing mother who just July of 2020 just passed away. So it's only been like 9 months.
Sorry to hear.
It's only been 9 months that I have been holding her in my heart. So the other night I watched Mortal Kombat with my children. And so they can't stand watching TV with me because I can find a word and everything. I'm like, oh, look at God. I'm like, look at God. I'm going to find it in everything. Okay. So then there's a line towards the, I'm not going to give it away, but I'm going to just give y'all this little bit just for y'all who don't have Prime yet. Okay. Anyway. at the end of Mortal Kombat, one of the characters looks at the other characters and he says, you freed me. And then he says, protect my bloodline. That thing shot, like it shot something up in me. And I was like, ooh, whoa. Like it was just so deep. It said, he looked at him and said, protect my bloodline. And immediately I said, oh, that was my mama. Like she just was like, Kiana, I'm in the room. And it was just like, it was a reminder to me that Coco, that's my nickname, when she get real serious with me, for me to protect her bloodline. And that wasn't just her bloodline. It was my grandmama's bloodline. It was my grandmama's bloodline. My grandmother was only made it to the 6th grade at 14 years old. And I am a college graduate. And so as a young girl, the issue was that I did not think my Black was beautiful. I did not. I could not wrap my head around being a beautiful and Black girl. Then I was full figured on top of that. I was like 16, looking like I was about 20. And I couldn't understand. I was like, my mother, I was like, Mom, you're only telling me I'm beautiful because I'm your daughter. And I remember going on this journey like at 18 and said, I'm going to find out who I am. And I like was desperate for God. But what I tried to do, like this whole intersectionality of the ways in which our lives and identities intersect, the way in which my life intersected with the arts, there was no separating me from it. We are multi-dimensional. So in addition to me being a woman and a Black woman, I was a Black arts mastermind creative. So as being a creative, that's the highest you get to being to God, that he allows you to create with him. And so understanding that I was a creator, I started to realize that I was called to do more than just exist. And if I'm called to do more than just exist, I can't just be fabulous and extraordinary on stage. So we as artists, we can be amazing on stage. And the moment the audience leaves, we go back to being sad, depressed, and we forget about who we are. And so I realized, I said, whoever that girl is on that goddamn on stage, I want to be her all the time. Whoever she is, whether they are applauding or not, I want to be her all the time. And so I was on a journey to find my calling. And what I realized was that my calling was first finding Kiana and healing myself of my daddy issues. And I mean my daddy issues with my biological daddy, but then my daddy issues with my spiritual God. Like, do I know who's my daddy? Like who I am? Like whose daughter I am? I'm royal. And so when I started to understand these concepts, I was like, okay, then starting to deal with like me, colorism, feeling like I was too dark, feeling like I was too big, starting to deal with me to the point that I realized I can be that person all the time. I'm no longer going to shrink when I walk in a room to make you feel better. So every space I walk into, you got to get comfortable, because if you hear my name, know that I'm coming in to take up space. That's okay. I'm not going to apologize for that. I have something to share. And when I die, I want to die empty. I want to die knowing I gave this world everything I had because I was called to do something. Chris is called to do something bigger than that. And regardless of people feeling like he's not masculine enough, he's right who he needs to be to continue to do this work. Marcus is right where he needs to be to continue to inspire Black boys so that they feel like if he did it, I can do it. Sarah is right where she needs to be to continue to inspire all young women to be amazing. Kelly is right where he needs to be to continue to offer a platform. We're right where we need to be, but sometimes we forget to be quiet and hear the call. And the call is simple. You are enough. We are enough. And we were created to do more than just exist.
I got to jump in on Kiana there. She's really giving me what I need, but I want to make sure I felt called to say that I really do believe in humankind. I believe in people. And I think, you know, my faith journey is really important to me as well. And, but I believe in people, and I believe that artists are those people that believe in that there is good in studying and kind of vibing with the human condition. That we want people to see that there is more than your struggle. There's more than your trauma. There is more than the darkness that can vibe inside of you based on external things, also things that maybe you kind of fight within yourself or what may have you but I think that is one of the biggest things that I try to inspire in my work, but then also in any space that I walk into, is that like we can love being who we are. And we can love being in spaces. And, Chris was saying something. I don't know if Chris or Kiana was saying something like, that might be cliche. No, I think it was Sarah. It was like, that might be cliche or whatever. But it's powerful because that concept is hard, but it's not complicated. And I think that as artists, or what I have learned as how to take the gift I've been given and to fit it into spaces, is to remember that call is hard. It's hard work, but it's not complicated. It's very easy. It's very simple. Not, I won't say easy, but it's very simple. And I believe in all the things. If you have, if you're connected to Christianity and God and that thing, or you're spiritual, but I think artists in general and everybody in this space is someone that feels like they need to give something to remind humankind that everyone has a place and everyone has a gift and everyone has something to say, and what you have to say is super important. And I think that's, again, in the not shrinking, is super important. It's because if you shrink, you might have the thing to save somebody's life. You might have the thing to innovate something that's super important. That if you diminish yourself, then we won't get it. We're waiting on you to give us the gift. So I think that's super important in all that we do. That's why that self-discovery, and that's why that understanding what you're called to do, and also in bringing it back to arts education, that's why it's super important to know that we're getting multiple skills. The social piece, to understanding and being in a room, in a class with 20 emotional lost people that are saying, I'm going to school to figure out why I feel the way that I do, because that's really why we went to music. I went to music school. That's the reason why you go to be an actor. It's like, I'm trying to figure out this human life thing, and I don't want to. I can't really do a math problem until I figure out why I feel the way I do, or why people act the way I do, or why my daddy act like that, or why are my friends like that? Why is my mom like that? And I think that's what we're going to really do, is to inspire people to be the best of themselves. That's what art education is to be the best of yourself that you can be. So I just wanted to jump on that because Kiana gave us a word.
Yes. with that, and thank you so much. I do want to wrap it up a little bit so we can move into the Q&A. But this has been fabulous. The last question I want to ask, and I want to direct it toward Chris. Where you thought you would be when you first graduated undergrad to where you are now? Can you speak to that question? What are the differences? Like where did you think you would be, and where are you now, and what was the journey and how it changed?
Man, I thought I was going to be a lot of things. At one point, I think I wanted to be like a famous conductor, and then that dream shifted, and I wanted to be in like Chanticleer, which is like a famous choral ensemble, and then that dream shifted, and I wanted to be an opera singer. and I think my career trajectory and my goals and the goals that I set for myself constantly kept shifting. But I think I was fortunate to realize that those changes were not a bad thing. It was just part of my evolution as a human being and as an artist. And I just, something in me just allowed me to follow my inner compass, you know, and really connect to where the waves wanted to go. And so, and I still have that philosophy today. And I think it's why I'm able to navigate successfully in what I do, because I follow where my soul, where my spirit takes me. And if you know, like, for instance, right now I'm a professor of voice at a university, and I do perform, not at the capacity that I thought I would, but I do know that I make meaningful art. I make art that has political and social implications, that encourages people to think more deeply about the issues that are affecting humankind. But at the same time, I know that as we enter this era of social consciousness, I think I want to be a lawyer. So I'm like looking at schools to go to law, you know, and it's like my dreams keep shifting. And, you know, at times it's easy to, and I know this happens for all of us as artists, and at times it's easy, especially when you've committed to an artistic career for so long, it's easy to feel like, did I make a mistake? But I think as my trajectory shifts and as I evolve, I kind of remind myself that I can still be an artist and engage in other things. I can still, it's part of being a holistically well-rounded human. And so yeah, when I think, when I reflect back to my undergrad, I don't think I am where I thought I'd be, but I am still at the core the essence of Chris Sierra, which is somebody, like Marcus alluded to, is, you know, it really resonated with me, somebody who wants to understand the human condition, but the human condition through art. Someone who wants to change, like, our global community through art. Somebody who wants to better themselves through art. So I'm just riding the waves right now, and yeah, maybe law school is in the works. I've been looking, and who knows? Maybe I'll be a lawyer, professor, singer, and let's just add more things to the plate, and that's okay, you know. So
Exactly.
I'm following my inner compass.
Multi-hyphenated. Does anybody else have? Marcus, you're on mute. What did you say?
Just praise it.
Okay.
I just love this so much.
This has been extremely cathartic and very empowering. And I hope everybody watching feels that way too.
Gosh, I just feel so full. I think the one thing that if I was gonna respond to that, it would be to tell people that the arts is not a career; it's a lifestyle. Being an artist is and I think that one of the things my biggest criticism of art school is that we can boil it down to 4 years of things that you can do. Become a triple threat. If you can dance and sing and act, or in our case, it's like you can sing in multiple languages, you know, me and Chris, that you've made it. And what art school encouraged me to do was to always step back in everything that I do and say, was it honest? Are you being honest in what you're doing? Are you available in what you're doing? And how did you offer a connection with another human? Did you connect with someone when you were doing something, when you were doing this thing? Because singing, dancing, art is just the language in which to connect. It's nothing more than that. And in that makes it super amazing. That it's language. It's just another language in which for us to engage as human beings. And if you have an understanding of that, and you're going to prosecute, or you're educating, or you're talking to that young man, because you have the capacity, Kiana, to say, I can hold my trauma and educate and also advocate for myself at the same time. That's what an arts education teaches you how to do, because you're in a room, in a school with many people who are different than you. There are so many conversations. There are so many experiences where I was like, I don't really like you, or I don't get you, or I don't want to be around you. And we had to learn how to do it because we were singing in the same choir. We were in the same show. That's your scene partner. That's your dance. That's the person that's lifting you above the ground. And so I think we find a way to be empathetic. We find a way to be kind. And I think that's what art school is. And so it's indicative of this space, right? We all are from different places in different spaces doing different things. But it comes back to being, studying how to be a good human. So, wow, what a beautiful night. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I want to say, Kiana, Sarah, Chris, Marcus, thank you so much for sharing, for being open and being amazing collaborators in this conversation tonight. We do want to open it up to some audience Q&A, only just a few, but we got the first one right here. Jeremy Landis, hello, sir. Broad question. How can we, at a local community level, rally behind underfunded arts programs? How do we make transformative experiences in the arts the norm for all students and not the anomaly? Let it marinate, and whoever might have a response, please jump in.
Because I'm in education and I'm working, I feel like there needs to be a bridge between K through 12 and these programs within the community. There has to be a gap. There is a gap, so there has to be a bridge to bridge these underground organizations who are doing these programs. One, because the schools now have gifted programs, we need the community organizations that our students are going to now refer them to be a part of the gifted programs. Because unfortunately, there are implicit biases. So we are thinking that gifted students look a certain way. So when Sarah and both Christopher were talking about this overlapping of special education students being left out, that's because of the intersectionality that if they are special education and they're a student of color, or they come from a low socioeconomic status, then we are automatically overlooking them. If they're students like Marcus who are moving around in the classroom a lot, it's like, oh, there's nothing gifted about them. When in reality, they are very gifted and maybe twice exceptional. There may be a special education need, but also some gifted things there. But if they're in the community and a part of the acting classes and a part of the community choir, then if we bridge the gap between those community organizations and K through 12, now you have the music teacher in the community who's now referring them for the gifted program. So now they're starting to get more access. We need access for the community programs that will give access to students in both places. We're trying to educate children at several different locations, but the African proverb tells us that it takes a village to raise a child. So we need to bridge the gap, and all of us need to work together. The second part of that question was, can we put that up again?
Yes, thank you, Laura.
I was saying that about the norms. Here's the other thing is that, so the artsy kids become like, oh, they're just being dramatic. Okay, let's stop that right now. Okay, we're not dramatic. I think that it's us. We've tapped into something that makes us feel seen and heard. But I think also this idea of the norm is that we have to make it the norm of self-care. Starting at a young age, we have to tell students it's okay. Mindfulness needs to be a part of our classroom at like pre-K. It's okay to take a moment to stop, to put on some music and allow students to take a moment and to breathe, to do a restorative circle and ask students to check into the space. How are you feeling today? There is where you may find out that student is being molested. There is where you may find out that student didn't eat breakfast. There is where you may find out what's really going on in the home. So we are putting our own thoughts and beliefs and labels on students without really checking in to see how are they doing. We're telling students how you identify. No, you are a boy, but we're not allowing students to say how they identify. We're not giving them the space to be restorative and restore their communities and restore themselves. That's how we shift and make the abnormal now normal, when we create a space that is conducive to healing and restoration in our communities.
Amen. Anybody else anybody else want to jump in on that?
I do think we also need to normalize it with educators, right? Because any kind of art form is an exercise in a lot of different cognitive tasks, and it can help to teach our kids how to do lots of different things, working together with the people that they don't like, organizing, planning, self-regulation, self-correction, awareness, focus and sustained attention, memory, memorizing lines, memorizing a song. All of these things are things that kids need to survive in the real world, that art has taught us, and certainly it could teach them. So I just want to piggyback off of your awesome answer, Kiana.
Hey, Laura, we might have time for maybe one more question. If you want to pop up that second one for us, please. Is Mr. Josh Christensen, another used board member. It seems like so often people in power in the arts, directors, etc., sell this idea that abuse is a tool they use to get to art. And this trickles down to arts education and some teachers. What destructive tropes do we have to unlearn or demand be unlearned by those in power around creating art and educating young artists? Wow.
All right, Josh. You did it. You gave the question. I think one of the biggest things is believing that because you are older, you know more. I think that that we are not, as a teacher, I think that teachers are learners that don't want to stop learning. It's not about hierarchy. And so when you get into a space where you think that you know more, and therefore you cut off or you stifle the voice of the artist that's already there. Because if you listen, you'll hear the art. And as teachers, we are molders. We are facilitators. We are gatekeepers. We are not creators. The art is made with the student, and you give them the tools to make their own art, to amplify their own voices, not tell them who they are, who they have to be, and where they have to be in order to make the art. So we get into a dangerous place when we forget that relationships are cyclical, and that you need just as much from the person that you're pouring into to facilitate a new artist, a new mind that's going to give of themselves in this way. And so I think that that's one of the biggest things. Can you please bring the question back? Thank you, Laura. Just so I get the... And I think destructive tropes are, there aren't enough teachers from different diverse backgrounds. My undergraduate, I had a white blonde lady who didn't know anything about anything, to be honest. But when we're talking about, she didn't know anything about my experience, and she demeaned my experience instead of amplified my experience, so that then I would be able to meet her with the information that she gave me, but she demeaned me. So I still was not able to get the information because she told me that gospel music, there was no place for gospel music in the classical world. But as a teacher now, I know that is very true. And those are some of the best singers, and there's so much technique that is already going on there. But because she did not know my experience and did not invite my experience into the room. And she didn't know, and she didn't ask the question. How can I help you? What do you know? Please, Chris.
Sorry, I think this is wonderful. I mean, I echo what you're saying. I think that another really important thing to address amongst educators right now is this idea that the delivery somehow has to be harsh and lack compassion. I really think that, especially in the really hardcore conservatories, I just remember some of the things that were said to me that did not empower me in any way. And there's merit to honesty, but it's the delivery that counts, right? I think as teachers, we have to think about what is the impact that we want to have, and what is the value of brutal honesty when we can easily provide compassionate honesty. Be honest with compassion when we give feedback. What good is it to tell somebody that they're not going to have a career because their voice is too small? What help does that do anybody? What if you could teach me how to resonate, I wouldn't have that problem?
Do your job.
Let's talk about let's talk about effective ways to give feedback. I think that's one of the things that I see time and time again in conservatories is this really negative, very, very negative way of presenting knowledge to students. And again, it's a very hierarchical way. It's like, I know this career, I know who's going to make it, you don't have the chops. And it's like, but do you?
Oh,
That was good too. That was so good.
That was amazing. And I hope he comes back, but I agree with everything that Dr. Chris was saying. Also, not trying to make students fit a mold. They will bring the mold to you, and then you just kind of respond to that. You just meet them where they're at, right? I'm so sorry, Chris, that you got kicked off. What were you in the middle of?
No, it's cool. No, I just say, I think I just wanted to conclude really by saying that I think there's value to honesty, but it just needs to be compassionate. And I don't think anybody really benefits from honesty that is brutal.
Yeah.
If our impact is to empower our students and our impact is to make our students self-sufficient so that they can go into the global market and really thrive, then I think we need to really rethink the pedagogical language that we're using. Yeah. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Thank you.
I just wanted to say something. I think a lot of times we're so concerned about the gift that we forget about the person. That we're so busy trying to cultivate something and that we forget about cultivating the person. Because if you cultivate the person will cultivate the gift, and the gift will do what it's supposed to do. So what happens, it's almost like we send broken people out on the stage and say, go ahead and perform. And so we do just that. We perform, but we don't know how to exist. So when we have to go backstage and be ourselves, we don't know how to do that because you didn't cultivate me, you cultivated the gift. So we need to be careful to make sure that the person is just as important as the gift. What makes up the person? What makes them special? What makes them extraordinary? How can we empower that? And then what you'll find is that the gift itself will naturally get stronger. You ever watch those students, the ones that we least expect to do the things that they do, and then we cultivate them, we encourage them, we empower them, we uplift their families. The next thing you know, they stand on stage and they do things that we didn't even practice that. Wait, where did that come from? That's because we cultivated the person. And so I think if we're going to get to the core of arts education, that's why we're all drawn to it, because it cultivates something on the inside of us that we can't even describe. It cultivates. And what happens is those of us who don't want to do it anymore are those of us who have been hurt by things people have said or done because we didn't fit a mold, or because we didn't sound a certain way, or because the teacher forgot that we were human first. So I'm going to also say this, that's why equity and inclusion training is so important for teachers because they constantly need to keep learning and growing. It doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher. It just means you need the education. You need to know about teaching tolerance. You need to know about cultural responsive teaching. You need to know this. It's important that you bring all of Marcus into the classroom, all of Christopher, all of Sarah, all of Kiana, all of Kelly. If you leave out one bit of us, you're leaving out a huge part of us.
That's why education is a huge responsibility and a heavy task. And I know, I'm sure the educators in here can speak to it. And the people who went through the education system who wish we had those things or experienced those things, and how certain professors were able to cultivate things in us that others might not have been able to. But excellent. I think that's a great place to stop. Those were two excellent questions. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Laura, for putting those up. I'm going to give us over to our artistic director and co-founder, Laura Betts. But before I do that, I did just want to remind everybody watching one last time that we are fundraising for Dance in Color tonight as well, an awesome organization who, by the way, the founders and the team over there also went to Muhlenberg with me and Laura. So we know each other well, and they're fabulous people who are all about inclusion in the arts, collaboration. And there's the donor box link up there for them. We'd greatly appreciate it. 50-50, 50 to use, 50 to Dance in Color. Thank you so much for the collaboration and the support tonight, Dance in Color. And we look forward to collaborating with you in the future. And now, thank you so much. I know Chris early exited. Okay. But thank you again, Chris, Sarah, Marcus, and Kiana. This has been really empowering, and it means a lot that you all took the time to be here tonight. So thank you so much. And now let's jump on over to Laura.
I was muted. Hi, friends. My name is Laura. I'm just thrilled over here. I'm on the back end. I'm hearing all the wisdom, and I'm so happy to be with you all and help wrap up the night. Like Kelly said, I help run Use with him. I'm one of the co-founders, the artistic director, and first of all, just big thank you to our panelists for extremely bright lights in my day today, this night event. I mean, I feel immense inspiration. Thank you to Kelly, an amazing partner for me, an amazing moderator for tonight. Thank you to all of you who are engaging. I'm loving seeing the comments come through, loving the questions that you're asking. Thank you for always supporting these events and appreciating the value that they bring. Thank you to Dance in Color for partnering with us on this. Thank you to our Use staff, Brittany, TJ, Jamila. Thank you to our Use board. Newest member Marcus, Josh, Liz. So excited to have this entire support network. And just again, thank you for making Speak Up series continue and adding a robust discussion to it. With that said, I'll put the link up on the screen. I'm really giving that last extra touch, raising funds. And actually, if you're not able to tonight, but you could see yourself maybe doing a donation in the next few days, we will have this donor box link live through April 30th, this Friday, and also our Facebook fundraiser. So if you or somebody you know that maybe couldn't make it tonight, but is feeling empowered and, reading some of the comments back, seeing how people were moved by the event and want to donate, you're more than able. 50% to Use, 50% to Dance in Color. And I think my last thing to share will essentially be, after all we've heard tonight, after all our panelists shared, after all Kelly wove us through all the topics, I think I want to remind all of you that, touch back in with your creativity, touch back in with your arts education experience. Remember the parts of you that are your lights and your gifts, and remember to tend to them and to care for them, either the way a great arts education mentor did, or maybe the way you had to self-advocate throughout. Touch back in with it. Know that it's going to serve you for the rest of your life, no matter what path you pursue. Touch base with a path that you feel like you are keen to pursue. Know that there are paths available to you that, like we say, the title of this event, there are different paths that reveal themselves in life. And when we're touching base with that humanity that our arts education lets us tap into, we are more keen to know those paths that will reveal themselves. And yeah, let's also just remember to encourage the young people around us to know those gifts, trust in those gifts, believe in them, take up space with them, and we can just keep having future and future generations be empowered by the arts education experiences that clearly everyone in the room tonight had. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and excited to see you all at the next event. Bye, everybody.